where you can see the big tea room there. It used to be our warehouse. And the back bit that is now the music hall, we used to have bathroom and bedroom displays. Then we were asked by a history group if they could show a short film that somebody had made as a hobby of Bluetown. It was just a half-hour black and white documentary film. They'd just taken photographs and made them into an animation, so you could actually see it if you're walking through Bluetown. So we expected about 10 people. I rashly said I'll make teas and coffees for everyone, and 100 turned up.
Oh, wow.
So I'm thinking, okay, what's the interest in Bluetown? And then we were asked to do it again and again. In the meantime, I started researching about it, and this place is just amazing. The amount of history that is in here, and our island, it just does not get recognised, the heritage that has gone. So then the docks have restored the figureheads. I don't know if you saw the portier just there, and there's another one just around the corner, Scylla. And they had nowhere to put them, so I said, would you like the figureheads? So the figureheads were now in amongst the bathroom displays. You'll get used to this, nothing is planned here at all. And then people started bringing bits and pieces in, and I sort of had like a mini heritage centre in amongst the bathrooms and bedrooms. Then unfortunately my husband took ill and we had to downsize and close the business. So I came up with this plan that if he'd been all right, he wouldn't have let me do. But so I converted the offices upstairs into an apartment, rented out some of the space. I just retired and I thought I'll have a little hobby of a heritage centre and try to promote Sheppey's history. Well, 13 years on, we discovered also quite early on that the actual building had been a music hall. The front bit had been a hotel, and on the 5th of June 1917, 23 Gotha planes came over, one of the first raids ever, and they blew, well, they were aiming for the dockyard and missed, and they got our building. If you look carefully when you go back to your minibus, you'll see the holes in the wall, and there's some shrapnel marks from that air raid. But does this ever get mentioned at all when they're talking about World War I history? That one of the first air raids ever, and there were 23 planes that came over to the dockyard. That's how important our dockyard is. So when you start finding out all this history, you're thinking, why doesn't anyone know about it? Then you discover that Sheppey's history hadn't been taught in the schools for at least 2 decades. So it's no wonder that parents can't tell their children because they don't know about it. In its heyday, 7,000 people lived in Bluetown. Now there's about 100. The reason they lived here is because of the dockyard. And the reason we had a dockyard is because the Dutch invaded in 1667. And they took the little fort that was at Sheerness, then they went over to Queenborough, they captured Queenborough, and then they forgot about it and didn't hand it back to the 1960s. So we were Dutch and we didn't know it for quite a long time. But our island is just a lump of clay. So they had tried to build dockyards in the past, but they'd flooded. But now they realised that they had to have some fortification here, otherwise people could go up to the Thames, which the Dutch did, and captured a ship from Chatham, which is now still in one of the museums in Amsterdam, where the back of it is Prince Charles. So you start finding all this history and you're thinking, what can we do with it? Then people started bringing bits and pieces in, and then my job was to try and make some sense of it all. We now have a museum over 3 floors. We've restored the music hall. It's one of the few music halls in the country. It's an authentic music hall. You get other places like Brick Lane that do music hall, but it's in a converted church. So the British Music Hall Society support us. In fact, in the autumn, we've got a proper music hall show on for 2 weeks. Heritage doesn't pay the bills. It's fantastic and it's a great hobby, and we've got about 25 volunteers, all passionate about telling Sheppey's history. And so to keep that going, we have to put on shows. So hence the music hall show. And do any of you listen to Radio Kent at all? Paul Harris, did you ever? He used to be on Radio Kent for years with Paul James. So when I first found out about the music hall, someone introduced me to him because he'd started life in a music hall, and he helped me. So our stage is the same size as the Leeds Variety, and he put on music hall shows for us for quite a few years before he retired. So music hall shows we do, other seasonal shows. When you go into the music hall, you see it's all laid up because we've got a coach party of 38 in tomorrow. So they will have, one of our guides will get on their coach, take them around the island. They'll look around the museum, they'll have a film, and they'll have, I think they've got ploughmans tomorrow. And that's what we do, get lots of coaches in. The seasonal shows, we get 2 coaches a day. How they find out about us, I don't know. But I mean, the group next week, I was just saying to Phil, are coming from Upminster. So we get them from regularly from Epsom every year. We get them from Guildford. Once they come back every year for a different show. We then became the community cinema. It used to be at the Healthy Living Centre, and it was in the sports hall, and people didn't like sitting and watching the film in there, so we were offered it. At that point, we hadn't got tables and chairs in there or anything at all. It was just a mixed match. I was the projectionist, I sold the ice creams, I sold the tickets, you name it, I did it. And sometimes it was colder in there than it was outside, but still people came. We now have a film every Friday. People join to become a friend of the centre, and they get free film every Friday.
When you said film, a modern film or an old?
A mixture of old and new. So the only way, we can't advertise the films unless you become a member, because that's the only way we can get the licence to make it free for everyone. But yeah, if I tell you that we've got the new Downton Abbey coming up, we've got The Duke, we've got Operation Mincemeat, and in the summer holidays we're doing children's films. So try to get families in. But we also do streamings, so we, like in the other cinemas, so we've got the Andre Roux streamings, we do them twice a year. And we've just been given the Westlife concert, so that's going to come on the 17th of September. So all sorts of things going here. So we have a monthly history talk, we have a monthly quiz, we have Showtime, where we stream West End shows that have been filmed in here. So I think we've got the Buddy Holly story this month. So there's all sorts of things go on here. We have a ukulele club. We tend to, someone asks us, can we do something? We tend to say yes and then work out how we're going to do it, and that's how it goes. We have a Dementia film club. What else do we do here? Knit and Natter group. We're going to start in October a film with a book club. So instead of just being a book club, you watch the film as well, then you can have the discussion about, you know, did the film match up to the book and stuff like that. And we're going to do a well-being group. So it's going to be a bit different from a normal well-being group, because that's what we do. So it will be a bit of health talk and stuff, and the exercises will be cheerleading with pom-poms and belly dancing and taster sessions and all sorts of stuff like that. Yeah, so lots of things go on here. So it's a community hub, it's a museum, it's a theatre, it's a cinema, and it could be whatever anyone else comes up with the idea for it. As I say, we only have 2 paid staff, the rest of us are all volunteers. We have all the schools here, we have all the care homes come in. Saturday, if you've been here, we had a senior school disco. So you had school dinners, and then we put music on. I was the headmistress, and we had top bags, and yeah, it was.
So you go all in?
You've got to have some fun when you're retired, haven't you? Otherwise, we're volunteers, so if you're not enjoying it, what are you doing it for? So when you're ready and relaxed, I'll take you for a tour around the building, and then I'll leave you to mooch on your own, because there's a lot to read, a lot to take in, because it's a big old building.
Can I have a bit more information on the Knit and Natter, please?
Knit and Natter, on a Friday morning, they just come and they sit in the tea room and they just knit natter. It's very informal.
I'm trying to find a group that works around my work.
Yeah.
Because I'm a server manager. I can't do anything during the day, so I'm trying to
The Royal
find.
Naval Air Service started. So all the aviation activities for World War I were organised from Sheerness Dockyard. So hugely important. That's why they tried to bomb him. He isn't the original. The original you see is upstairs. He fell into disrepair, and you can see on the side there's a picture of how he's been carved in wood as the original would have been. So he's absolutely gorgeous. And there's Scylla, and she's 200 years old. You might have seen her outside of Trinity council offices in Trinity Road.
Trinity Road, yeah.
Okay, if we're talking about the co-op, if you want to go in there, there's a co-op shop, turn of the century. So I'll just point you, just briefly tell you things, and then you can have a good mooch on your own.
Keep moving on with us.
So, as I mentioned, 1816 the co-op started. We found out about it because you can see the centenary book up there. Someone brought that in and we started looking into it. Then we had a school party and the little boy went home, told his granddad, and he said, I saved all the ledgers from the co-op when they were knocking it down. So if you look behind you, you've got original ledgers. And all these other bits and pieces, and two of our volunteers put this together, and another volunteer wrote the book. So
Beautiful.
in here we have a schoolroom. And there's a Sunday school there, so we've got a schoolroom and a Sunday school. All of this furniture came from Halfway School when they closed down. And that big throne there, that came from Danley School when it closed down. But it was, first off, it started off in a girls' tech school. And if you look very carefully, you can see there's a mouse on the top of it. It's a mouseman. So we don't know what would have happened to all of this stuff if we weren't here. So I'll show you along, as I say, I'm just going to show you and then you can mooch. Yeah. So this is our research room. We do family history workshops here. Two of our volunteers, you can book a slot on a Friday and they will help you through your family history. But also we've got lots of books. Again, people have donated their own research, and so it just grows and grows.
Yeah. Be interesting to sit and look at the book.
But we have to fundraise to get computers and all of this. Yeah, just be careful as you come out of there. So that's what our building looked like before it was bombed. That's what the stage looked like again before. That's the old Bluetown there. And this is a model my husband made of the Gotha planes that came over, say 23 of them came over and bombed us. There's your permit books, your passports. And then we've got a 1940s house here. So this is the same size as a typical house in Bluetown. Can go in if you want. But as I say, have a mooch later on. So and then this is a yard with an outside loo. And on the back there we've got the history of how to wipe your bottom. School children love that.
Yeah.
Squares of newspaper with a bit of
There you
strength
go,
in
you've
the
got
corner.
newspaper,
Oh, you've got it, there it is,
yeah,
yes.
you've got the eyes all.
Been there, done
We've
that.
got
Horrible stuff.
It's alright, you'll have to duck as you come through here and hold this door, alright? You've got a Home Guards office.
Yep, yep.
and then we're going to go up the stairs.
This is where the air raid building would have sat.
Yeah, what's your head out?
Through the lifeboat here.
Wow!
Here.
There's a story behind everything. So we didn't know we had these beams until the ceiling fell down. And then I thought, well, do you know these beams must have come from a ship? And also this is where Sheerness was where he picked up his first ship and where he came in the barrel of brandy after the Battle of Trafalgar. So my husband is very patient with me when I say, do you know what, could I have it laid out like the deck of the Victory? So you've got a captain's cabin in there, you've got what life is like at sea. Somebody was talking about...
Sorry to interrupt. What part of the building are we actually in now?
We're at the top.
Yeah, so this isn't the theatre or cinema or anything like that. No, that's something right. Sorry,
Okay.
I'm just trying to orientate myself.
So
this would have just been bedrooms in.
Hmm?
This would have just been bedrooms.
This would have been our storerooms up here.
Ah,
Yeah.
Our offices used to be at the back, but that's now our apartment. And yeah, you'll see it was nothing,
Yeah.
absolutely nothing. But then when you get given all this stuff, where do you put it?
Yeah.
So when I was saying to somebody what I'd like to do is to make it like the deck of the Victory, they said, well, I'll make you a cannon. So I'm thinking a cannon about that big. And he goes, no, I'm coming in convoy. So it's a life-size replica of a cannon from the Victory.
Oh, it's a replica, is it?
Yeah,
Oh,
fiberglass.
yeah.
But we did rescue a real cannon. When the steel mill closed down, the security guards phoned up and they said, Jen, you've got half an hour to get anything that you want. So I went in, I got the architect's model of the steel mill.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise, people wouldn't ever realise it's gone. And we saved a cannon called Blackie that was, actually it was purloined by apprentices in the 1970s. And it was part of people's apprenticeship to look after this cannon. So people asked if we could rescue it.
Yeah.
You tried getting a real cannon over the road into a yard. We got nowhere to put it, so it was in one of the yards around the corner there. And that's how things come to us.
But you still got it? The cannon?
It's in one of the one of the yards
Yards,
somewhere.
yeah.
Yeah. So up there you've got an original World War I stretcher. That bench came from the Fountain Hotel. This model, the guy was a professional model maker, and when he died, his widow donated it to us. And then we've made a jail over there for Richard Parker. So you've also got over there the Princess Irene. So in World War I, there were two explosions that happened within a few months of each other, the Bulwark and the Irene, and nearly 1,000 people died in those two explosions. So what is now our war memorial was actually a memorial to those two explosions. Now, the Princess Irene was one of the first minesweepers. It was made by Canadian Pacific. It didn't even have time to have its paint changed over to the Royal Navy paint. People didn't know how to load up mines, and it blew up. And the explosion was so great that a child died on the Isle of Grain from the shrapnel. And when they were going to do the centenary of it, we got involved because when they did the bull walk a few months ago, before that, they did it in Chatham and didn't invite anyone from Sheppey, which annoyed us a bit. So we thought that we would do something. So my husband actually made that model from one photograph. There was only one photograph of the ship ever. So he scaled that up and made that for us. We had a student from the University of Kent who did a biop of everyone that had died in that explosion. And then somehow or other, people found out what we were doing and they said, could they come over? Because they knew they had relatives that had died in that. So we had people that came from Canada, Australia, Tasmania, all over the UK. So then we had to get some funds to try and feed them. And then people with little boats offered to take us out to the wreck site. And then we had a memorial. And that's just how things happen here. And that is the Montgomery. So if you looked outside, you may have seen two silver pulleys. That's them. They were a bit dangerous and swinging in the wind, and the docks phoned up and they said, can we bring 2 bits of the Montgomery over for you? So that's how we've got them out there. And by the way, we've got an anchor as well, so that's why we've got those.
Are you going to get your masts when they take them?
No.
That's a good question. Very
But
good
also-
question.
Inadvertently.
Yeah, but
We
they're
have a
about
letter.
to cut
Yeah.
the
Oh,
masts
yeah.
off
Yeah.
the Montgomery.
I think that's wrong. I should just leave it alone.
So we have a letter there from the American government to say that they salvage it. So according to them, it's not there.
Yeah,
Okay.
I love that.
Yeah. Along there, you've also got a timeline of Sheppey's history. So when you come up and have your mooch, there's plenty to read and have a look at. So I'm going to take you downstairs to the music hall and then leave you to your own
How
device.
come you've got a little garden?
Because when I moved here, I had to give up my garden, and that was just a horrible black fat roof.
Yeah.
And so
Now
over
it's
the years,
not.
I've made it into my little garden.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Nice.
So I have my summer house,
Wow.
which
Beautiful little hidden gem.
Yeah, it is.
so that's my little escape. So I don't let the public up, but once a year we have a cocktails and canapé party for all the volunteers. So we.
Karen just said it looks like a bowling green.
Yes, it's fake grass. I just hoover it up, you know.
When you fill this building up, what you
Here is something really important. You'll see some anchors in Bluetown, but this is the only place in the world that anchor trials have ever taken place. The Royal Navy used to use Sheerness Dockyard to do all their experiments and trials, and prior to 1852 it was basically one shape of anchor that did everything, and they were losing anchors. So they tested anchors to see what shape would be best for what circumstances, and that's still the only time the anchor trials have taken place, when you consider that every ship has an anchor. And there used to be an anchor testing house at Sheerness Dockyard as well. So yeah, someone was asking me what my next dream is. I would like to actually have an anchor museum along Bluetown High Street with all the different shapes of
That would be
anchors
good.
and figureheads and stuff. When you come down here, you'll see a handsome king at the bottom, and I'll tell you about him.
Yeah. Yeah, it was quite huge, yeah.
Oh, so close.
You only see the masts. Yeah.
So can you see William IV here? The reason we've got William IV is he never expected to become king, and he was in charge of Sheerness Dockyard. He was a sailor, and so it was a logical thing for him to be given the job of looking after that. He lived in Sheerness with his mistress, and if you go into Wetherspoons, it's called the Bellen Lion, and it's named after them. He was the lion and she was the bell. She came from a theatrical background. They had several children, but then when he died, he didn't have any legitimate heirs, so his niece took the throne, which was Victoria. But he seems to have been forgotten, yet he did an awful lot of good in his short time. His brother was extravagant, the Prince Regent, but he actually was very frugal and did lots of good things. All right, so careful as you come round the corner here. We're going right down to the bottom.
so there's your
So that's our lift. It took me 2 years to fundraise for. And it's the music hall.
I think I'm about
Oh, goodness.
wow.
That's incredible.
This is more than what I imagined.
I can imagine this full of sailor boys,
Yeah.
and the dancing going
Yeah.
on up there and the drinking going on down here.
How long did it
Incredible.
take you to bring this back to life?
Well, we're still doing bits and pieces. We've done it all on a shoestring. But so it's 13 years from the beginning.
Do you have pictures from when you first started?
Yeah, when you go onto the middle floor by the lift area there, you can see some of the pictures of what it looked like. So everything here has a story. I mentioned that discovered it was a music hall, and so I thought I'd like to restore a music hall, but I don't have any money. So anyone who would listen, I would say I need a grand piano and some chandeliers and bone china. So all the bone china has been donated. I don't know if you know, if you're from the island, there's an Art Deco house on the island near Minster Library. It's built in the shape of a grand piano.
Her daughter helped renovate it.
Yeah.
She painted it.
Yeah. So we got a phone call to say they were clearing the house out and they'd left one room to the end and it was just full of newspapers from floor to ceiling. They took those away and they found the grand piano.
So that sort of story is true. There was
Yeah.
a piano in there.
And so they said, would you like it? But it would be £300. We hadn't got that. And a customer heard the story, said, I'll buy it for you. Never met this man before in our lives. And got a piano tuner, said, can you go and check it out? And he said, you've got to get it, it's a Bechstein. He said, that's like the Rolls Royce of pianos. And then we had 3 days to get it out of the house, otherwise it would have gone to auction with the house. And so we then found a remover who had a piano shoe, and he said, I'll do it on a Sunday morning for you if you can get me 4 fit men under 40 at 9 o'clock on the Sunday morning. Now that's a challenge. So got one of my boys, and then we thought, who lifts heavy things? And we thought undertakers. And Hogbins came and helped us out. So the chandelier then was donated. So yeah, that gets played as well.
You say that you still use it?
Still use it.
Yeah, excellent.
It would cost £40,000 to get it restored. When we got it in, we looked at the little serial number. There are only 2, it was built in 1870, and there are only 2 left in the country. One's in the Royal Opera House, and the other one's here on us.
Excellent.
So, if you was to insure it, could you get insurance for
Oh,
it?
we have insurance for everybody. You try getting that out.
No, you couldn't.
So you can see
couldn't
we're
replace
a
that
cinema.
anyway.
We have shows, talks. This room gets used a lot. I say tomorrow we've got this group coming in, and so they'll be having a tour of the island. They'll be coming in here for lunch. They'll be watching a history film, and they'll be having a talk and a tour.
We had a family birthday party.
You did, yes.
Yeah.
And we do lots of family reunions as well, where people have traced their ancestry and then want to bring them all together.
That's a good idea.
We do weddings, we do wakes, we do
When you say weddings,
golden
wedding
weddings,
receptions, or
wedding
can someone
receptions.
actually get married
We
here?
can do, one of our trustees is also a celebrant, so we can't do the legal bit, but we can have the whole shebang upstairs, sign on the captain's table, and then have your party down here.
Wow, change your mind about the wedding.
And people, well, we had a golden wedding, I think it was last year now, where they wanted to watch Mamma Mia, sing along Mamma Mia with fish and chips, because we do that quite a bit. And it was great because they didn't know that their daughters had rehearsed one of the songs, so they came all dressed up. Their son was a pianist, he got and played on the piano. It's just nice. And we seem to specialise in 90th birthdays.
Well, that's a milestone.
So we have it all laid out. You can see on the front of the building how it all gets laid out. But as I say, Saturday it was the senior school disco.
Yeah.
Oh, that's where my cane got to.
Very diverse.
I was terrifying them all with the cane.
Oh my lord.
So, I'll leave you to mooch. All right, I'm around if you need to ask anything.
What's the history of this dress?
Well, we did have Max Miller's costume in there, and the British Musical Society wanted it back. So I had to find something quickly to put in there, and so that's my wedding dress.
Oh, that's lovely. It's absolutely stunning.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I'd like to get into it now. But...